My friend referred to our house as her house and offered to buy it for $1, so I made her homeless and kicked her out. My biggest headache for the past 4 years. I have a friend, let's call her Carly, who had incredibly similar experiences to me growing up, but struggles with finances and has never seemed to get the hang of keeping any sort of savings over $50 at a time. I'm not sure if it's a lack of self-control, or that she's simply too focused in the moment when she gets paid and doesn't think to look in the long term, but she consistently makes her lack of funds everyone else's problem. During the course of our friendship, I have helped her build countless budgets based on my, but each time they failed for whatever reason. Carly moved out of her mom's house a little over 6 years ago and into a mutual friend's place. Let's call her Tia. As far as Tia has told me, Carly paid little to nothing in rent, even though they both worked at the same company and earned the same salary. Carly's living space was an absolute disaster. She moved into the basement and it was lucky if there was even a walkway to get to the washer and dryer. She constantly asked me to come over to help her clean and organize her space, and because I'm a people pleaser, I would always agree. Each time we would make significant progress, but then by the next weekend when I would come over to help again, it was as if a tornado had gone through her space in the course of the week. I have no idea how she was able to fit so much stuff into that tiny space. She would never clean up on her own or make any sort of effort to put anything away and would always wait for me to come over. If anyone were to come down to watch us, it was always me cleaning or organizing while she sat back and dictated where everything went. Getting her to donate or throw anything away was like pulling teeth, as even the smallest scrap of paper had some sentimental value. After over a year of living together, Tia couldn't handle it anymore and asked Carly to find another living situation. She wasn't going to throw her onto the street, but she literally couldn't live with Carly any longer. It just so happened that my husband and I had purchased a second home around this same time. What we had owed on the first was paid off. My husband had come into an inheritance, and we could look for our forever home that better fit our wants and needs. The best part for us is that the new house was a 5-minute drive from the old house. We had yet to decide whether we wanted to sell or rent our first house when Carly offered to rent it from us. She and 2 other friends were looking to move in together, and with the house as big as it was, there was plenty of space for all of them to have their own room and privacy. Since we hadn't yet decided if we wanted to sell, and there were 3 renters already lined up, we decided to use it as a means of passive income to invest in our future, and then down the road, we would revisit whether or not we wanted to sell it or keep it as a rental. The red flag that I didn't initially pick up on was that Carly was already referring to the house as her house to her 2 potential roommates even before moving in or signing a lease. So by the time it came to them all moving in, Carly had driven the other 2 girls to back out. The way I had written the original lease agreement was that the rent was flexible depending on how many tenants there were, so for the 3 of them, they would have only been paying $750 total per month, and if only one person was renting, it would be $400 per month. In this area you can expect to rent a bedroom for $400, so this was a crazy good deal as we really didn't need the money and it was mainly to pay for insurance, power/heat, and property taxes. In the 4 years that Carly has lived in that house, rent has gone up 4 times. Once to $500 a month because the power bill went up and we needed to adjust for that. The second time to $550 a month due to the same reason. The third time to $750 after she got a new job. And last year in October, also in the 4 years she has lived here, 2 separate opportunities for roommates have backed out. Each time she was setting the rules and referring to the property as her house despite having zero claim to it and the fact that each person would have their own lease agreement. When she first moved and she was working a minimum wage paying job. She was my friend, hence the low monthly rent, but a year and a half ago got a new job at a local university that pays very well and has great benefits, but somehow she managed to blow through her entire paycheck on I don't even know what. Also, during the course of these past 4 years, she wound up owing me $750 in back rent as she repeatedly was unable to pay me the full monthly amount due to repeated miscalculations in her budget and overspending on garbage, which she then stuffed into mine and my husband's property. My husband and I realized after a couple years of being landlords that we aren't cut out for it. We have too much on our own plates and had no time for upkeep, and Carly wasn't holding up her end of the rental agreement that she had signed. We talked about it and settled on the decision to sell, but we of course didn't want to throw Carly onto the street and informed her of our plan. She proposed to buy it from us and started going through the route of getting a loan. During this process she realized that the house wasn't what she wanted land, and the house itself was far too big for her. She told us that and we understood, and I even helped drive her to meet with realtors so she could check out other options to buy houses elsewhere. Still, each one fell through as she discovered that she wasn't going to get a new homeowner's discount or bargain with any loans that she looked at, and all of the loans required a minimum of a 10% down payment, which she of course didn't have. This is where the entitlement starts. Carly wouldn't be able to buy a home, at least not the home she wanted, and settled on buying our house. We had briefly talked at the very beginning of her tenancy that we may consider a rent-to-own situation, but no agreement had been made. No sale price had been decided, no appraisals or property inspections completed, and nothing had been signed. It was simply a comment that we had made in passing and then chatted about later, again in passing. She took it as gospel truth and said that if she bought the house she expected the 2.5 years of rent she had paid us to be comped off the total sale of the house. I reminded her that we never signed anything about a rent-to-own and informed her that wasn't how this was going to work. Her next tactic was to suggest that we quitclaim deed the property to her. again without her paying us anything additional to the 2.5 years worth of rent she had already paid us. How this works is that whoever owns the property grants the title/deed to whoever they're giving it to. It's generally a lot faster and cheaper than going through the process of buying a house, but there is still generally something paid for the property when the title is transferred. At this point she'd only paid about $10,000 in rent, more than half of which went to paying for utilities that we covered instead of having her pay them in property taxes, and she was making it sound as if she wasn't going to give us anything beyond that. I again told her that this would not be a viable option. The house was in great condition, and even with the exterior paint and repairs to the floors and bathroom was worth at least what we had paid for it, $118,000. She tried to spin it that she was doing us a favor by taking it off our hands, as I had expressed to her that we were tired of being landlords and it was more effort than we had time for. Her last attempt at buying the house on her own was to offer me $1. That's right, a single dollar. I will admit, I don't know if this was a failed joke attempt on her part, but it certainly fell flat and I was so mad I was shaking, though I laughed it off. Side note, during the time she has lived in the house, my husband and I have some stuff stored in the garage, as Carly parked on the street due to convenience, and she suggested on multiple occasions that she start charging us rent for storing things in our own house when none of it was in her way whatsoever, and we had already made it clear that if she purchased the house that we would remove all of our property. Update: she's out and have been since April 1st. Life's been insane and I've been so overwhelmed with this whole situation that it's been hard get back on here and face it all again. They left the house a mess, but that's not surprising. She claimed she didn't have the time or money to finish even though there was a whole month left on their lease. Honestly, I'm happy that she's out, though I am pissed about the mess. I'd rather clean up a bit instead of fight them in court to kick them out. I told her mom and showed her everything, and her mom was angry as well and told her off a couple times for one, leaving the house in the state they did, and two, treating me, and others, the way she has.